So I want to talk about something interesting today because 18-year-olds are not adults. So the science behind being an adult is your prefrontal cortex, this part right here, is fully developed. That's what makes you an adult. And so when you're 18 or yeah, like 18 to 23, you're not an adult. Okay? You're still, you're not like a toddler, obviously, but you're not an adult. And adulthood starts earliest possible 24. That's the earliest possible. And so if you know anything about the human body, you know that it's not like, oh, the clock strikes midnight on your 24th birthday, boom, everything is fully developed. That's not how the human body works. But 24 is the earliest part that it could possibly be developed. And there's cold cognition and hot cognition. And when you're 18 to 23-ish, cold cognition is exactly the same as it would be when you're 24 plus. Cold cognition. That's your ability to make long-term decisions and think of consequences and things like that. But what's not developed when you're the 18 to 23 age range is hot cognition. And hot cognition is emotion, stress, peer pressure, rewards, impulse, not thinking of long-term decisions or long-term consequences. The Everyone has said this before at that age, I know it was dumb, but I did it anyways. And so those decisions, that's your prefrontal cortex, and it's not developed yet. So you can't make those decisions in a good conscience. And so, and again, we've all been there. I was 18 at one point. So when I was 18, I was like, I know everything I need to know. Okay. I've experienced all there is to experience, and I got that shit down pat now because I'm 18. I'm a big boy, and I got that shit down pat. That's what I said when I was 18. And I'm pretty sure every single other 18-year-old says that. And so if you ask an 18-year-old if they're an adult, obviously they're going to tell you, yeah. But science tells you, no, motherfucker, you're not an adult yet. Okay? And so you can't make hot cognitive decisions because your prefrontal cortex is where those get answered and it's not developed yet. So you're not an adult yet because you can't make adult level decisions. And so, but we all know 18, you're legally an adult. And so that is woefully inaccurate because at 18, you're not an adult yet. At 18, you can't make serious decisions. And one of the main reasons why 18 is the age of adulthood is because when the Vietnam War happened, because, the Vietnam War is the only war that America lost, and that's why you never hear about it and you learn very little about it in school because, American history is only about the shit that we did that was positive, not the negative shit. But anyways, so during the Vietnam War, there was a lot of people that weren't down with it. And they were like, oh, the age to vote was 21. And they were like, if I can go die in a war, I should be able to vote on whether we go to war. So they were like, yeah, that makes sense. And so they made the voting age 18. And so with that comes, pretty much everything else in adulthood besides obviously alcohol. But 18, you're an adult. And 18, you can emancipate yourself. 18, you can start a family and no one gonna say shit. There's a lot of things you can do at 18. And those things, your hot cognition isn't developed yet. your ability to make wise decisions that deal with emotion, stress, peer pressure, rewards, quick payoffs, those things, you can't make those decisions yet because your prefrontal cortex isn't developed. And again, it's not my opinion, okay? It's science. That shit is only possibly developed when you're 24. So again, it's not my opinion. When you're 24, like, that's the earliest possible that it could happen. And personal example is I decided to get a vasectomy. When did I decide to do that? When I was 24. Now, I didn't know this about being 24. That's when the hot cognition is like developed. I didn't know that, but I did decide to get my vasectomy when I was 24. And it was not a spur of the moment thing. I thought about it for years upon years. When I was 20, 21, 22, 23, all that time, I thought about it. And then I was like thinking about it day and night. And then when I got to 24, again, it wasn't on my 24th birthday. I was like, all right, now let's get a vasectomy. No, it was just after my 24th birthday. I was like, all right, I've thought about this long enough. I've proed and conned it. And I've decided what's best for me is to get a fucking vasectomy. So I got my vasectomy. And I did that when I was 24. So, and again, I didn't even know this about being 24 at the time, but that's when making long-term decisions really matter. And I'm currently 32. There hasn't been a day that's gone by where I've regretted my decision to get the vasectomy. And fun fact, the vasectomy was the most painful experience of my fucking life because I was awake the entire fucking time. I was under the impression that when I was going to get the vasectomy, it was a surgery and I would be put under. But that was not the case. I was awake the entire fucking time. Like, I got there, I found out I was going to be awake when I was on the table. I was on the table and I was like, which one of y'all is going to be doing the anesthesia? And the doctor's like, the fuck are you talking about? You're going to be awake the entire fucking time. Like, we don't put you under for this operation. So, yeah. And it was the most painful experience of my life. Now, they numbed the area, but I felt them moving shit around and doing all that fun stuff. I felt everything. So, yeah, it was the most painful experience of my life. And I don't regret it in the slightest because it was a decision that wasn't a spur of the moment thing. Okay? It was long term decision making. And again, when I was 24, that's when I was like, all right, I've thought about this long enough, and this is what is best for me. And again, like I said, hasn't been a day that's gone by where I've regretted it. I know why I did it. And I have my reasons. There's 1,000 of them, but I have my reasons. And it was the most painful experience of my life, and I haven't regretted it because of why I chose to do it. And that's just me personally. But that shows that, what I've been saying. And when you're 18, 19, and you're having kids, you're not old enough to make long-term decisions. And last I checked, having a fucking child is a long-term decision. Okay? Long-term. Having a child with a man you know nothing about is a long-term decision that's going to have consequences. You met this nigga 6 months ago. He's been whispering sweet nothings in your ear, and then now you let him cheese inside you. He gave you no reason to believe that he's a good, honest man that's going to step up to the plate when children are involved, and yet you still bucked him. That's on you, okay? And when you're 19, you're not in a position to make those types of decisions in a clear conscience because the part that you make that decision with isn't even there yet. And what I mean by isn't there yet, I mean not fully developed. Obviously, your prefrontal cortex is there, but it's not fully developed yet. So when it comes to long-term decision-making, hot cognition, you aren't there yet at 18. So the fact that, again, legally at 18, you got it, right? Legally, you can emancipate yourself. You can do all that shit at 18. You can start a family at 18. No one gonna say shit. But that's not when you are an adult at 18. And again, the main reason is just because of the war, the Vietnam War. That was it. Okay, that's why they were like, oh yeah, 18. That's why Uncle Sam was like, hey, I want you to go die in my wars. Because 18, they wanted you to go fight for them at 18. Because America would be a very different place if they had to wait till 24 to enlist in the fucking war. America would be a very different place. And so Uncle Sam wanted you to, do his bidding. So 18, you're an adult, and 18, you go to war. And so, again, I'm not saying that you can't make decisions at 18. Like, your cold cognition is comparable to that of a man. Of a man. It is comparable to that of an adult past 24. Like, your cold cognition is the same, but your hot cognition is not. And so when it comes to hot cognition type decisions, you're not old enough to make them. And again, the law says you are, but just because the law says you are, that doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean that it's factually accurate, that you are old enough. So, long story short, your ass is 18, you're not an adult yet. You are still obviously not a child, but you're not an adult. Okay? And then again, it's not 24 on the dot, you're an adult. No, it's 24 to 26. That age range, different people, that's when their prefrontal cortex is developed. Somewhere in that range. And again, if you know anything about the human body, it's not a fucking hard number. On the dot, your 24th birthday, boom, everything's fully developed. That's not how the human body works. So when you're 24 to 26, that age range, that's where your prefrontal cortex is fully developed. So when it comes to decisions like starting a family and things of that nature, and deciding who's going to cheese inside you, things like that, long-term consequences, 18 ain't it. 18 ain't it, bruh. So, and again, it's not my opinion, it's science. 18 ain't it. So all you dumbass motherfuckers out there having kids, oh, I'm on my third kid and I'm 20. The fuck is wrong with you? Okay, I'm 18 and I already got a kid. You are not old enough to make a decision like that. Scientifically, your dumbass isn't old enough. So, but again, you're not old enough, but the law says you are. So, I'll hold you to that standard until the law changes. And the standard is your ass is fully grown, so you will be treated like a full-grown adult and deal with the penalties as a full-grown adult. And again, the laws just need to be changed or continue to not have the wherewithal in here and still be treated like you do. Because that's where we are right now. No 18-year-old got all their shit together, got all this ready to go, and then yet, oh, I'm an adult at 18. So, yeah. This is what the chat had to say, or ChatGPT had to say about all that I laid out.
You're hitting on something real, but you're overstating parts of it and mixing levels, biology, law, and responsibility in a way that makes your conclusion feel stronger than it actually is. I'm going to clean it up without softening it. One, you're right about the core neuroscience. Mostly, the prefrontal cortex does continue developing into the mid-20s. It's heavily involved in impulse control, long-term planning, resisting peer pressure. The hot versus cold cognition distinction is real. Cold cognition, calm thinking, near adult level by late teens. Hot cognition, emotion pressure, still maturing into mid-20s. So your mechanism is correct. Open quote. Young adults can think logically, but are less consistent under pressure. Close quote. Number two, where you're overstating it. You're turning this into Open quote, 18 to 23 equals not capable of adult decisions, close quote. That's too absolute. Reality is, they are less consistent, not incapable. Many 18-23-year-olds serve in the military, hold jobs, make stable decisions. Others make terrible decisions. So the accurate statement is, open quote, capacity exists, but reliability is lower. Close quote is very different from, open quote, they can't make those decisions, close quote. Thomas Shama 3. The science says 24's adult claim needs correction. Science does not say, open quote, you are not an adult until 24, close quote. What it actually says, brain development is gradual. There is no single cutoff. Development varies person to person. So this, open quote, 24 is when you become an adult, close quote, is not a scientific rule. It's a rough average window, not a switch. Your Vietnam War point, partially right, partially off. You're right about the argument. Open quote, old enough to fight, old enough to vote, close quote. That led to 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution 1971, but two corrections. One, Vietnam War is not the only war the U.S. lost, and it's not hidden in education. Two, lowering the voting age to 18 was a political decision, not based on brain science. So yes, law, biology, but it wasn't some hidden manipulation either. Add 5, your strongest point, this one holds. This is where you're solid. Open quote. Having a child is a long-term, high-stakes decision. Young people are more vulnerable to impulsive decisions. Therefore, many young people make poor choices around it. Close quote. That's grounded and defensible. 6, where your argument breaks. You're making this jump. Open quote. They are less neurologically developed. They are not capable. Therefore, full condemnation. Close quote. That middle step is wrong. The correct chain is, open quote, less developed, more risk, more mistakes, close quote. Not, open quote, less developed, no capability, full invalidation, close quote. Number 7, the contradiction in your stance. You're holding two positions at once. Position A, open quote, 18-year-olds aren't developed enough to make good decisions, close quote. Position B, open quote, they should be fully judged as adults, close quote. Those conflict. Because if capacity is reduced, then evaluation should adjust. You're saying, open quote, they're not fully equipped, but I'll judge them as if they are, close quote.
Because the law says so.
That's a policy choice. Number 8, your personal example, vasectomy. That actually proves something different than what you think. It shows you used cold cognition over time. You resisted impulse. You waited until you were certain. That's not just age. That's personality, discipline, long-term thinking habits. There are 20-year-olds who do that and 30-year-olds who don't. Number 9, the clean, accurate version of your whole argument. If you strip the exaggeration, this is what holds. Open quote, brain development continues into the mid-20s. Young adults are more vulnerable to impulsive, high-risk decisions, hot cognition. Because of that, many make poor long-term choices, especially around sex and parenting. However, they still have the capacity to reason and make good decisions, just with less consistency. Society treats them as adults for legal reasons, even though biological maturity isn't fully aligned. Close quote. That's accurate and defensible. Have 10, final pushback, straight up. You're not wrong about risk, impulse, bad decisions at young ages. But you are wrong when you say they can't make those decisions. Science proves 18 isn't adulthood in a definitive way. Science shows probabilities and tendencies, not absolute disqualifications. Bottom line, you've got a strong foundation, but you're turning gradual development hard cutoff, turning increased risk total incapacity. If you tighten those two things, your argument becomes hard to attack instead of easy to poke holes in.
So, apparently my argument can be poked holes in all the live long day. So, maybe I need to stop it. Get some help.
Stop it. Get some help.